ears in. All right, got my ears in. Got to do my morning exhale. First, I got to drink my water. So, drink water. Why am I drinking water out the jug? Well, number one, my mama ain't around. You know, if we did this when we were kids, you got in big trouble. Drink your water. You gotta drink your water. You know, one of the craziest things that I never knew. You know, most headaches are a lack of hydration. They're a lack of hydration. It's not a lack of Tylenol. It's a lack of hydration. The human being is supposed to drink a gallon of water a day. And if you don't do that, the lack of hydration from your brain, it contracts because it's not fully hydrated. And when it contracts, it pulls on nerves in your brain, in your skull, which cause the headache pain. Drink a gallon of water a day. The other thing it does, it makes you a little smarter, because if the brain passageways aren't hydrated, then your brain, you're not functioning how you're supposed to. You can't access those passageways how you're supposed to. So drink your water. So I got to drink my water. I got some stuff I want to talk about. But don't ever do that when your mother's around. I think my mother tried to hit me with a shoe. I did that once. I think that was orange juice. Good morning, Sister Laura. How you doing? All right. And then don't look at this part. You're not supposed to do this part. But I have to put my coffee in there. But you know, the doctors, they go back and forth every couple of years. This year is healthy. Next year is not healthy. Next year is healthy. So I really don't listen to that too much. I drink my coffee because when I was in corporate America, I had to keep up with these young programmers, right? And you have to go into meetings in the mornings and your brain has to work. Good morning, Brother Kevin. Good morning, Sandra. And so that's when I got this coffee addict that came from corporate America. Just as a manager, you can't go in the meeting and the people who work for you know more than you. You had to be able to fire, and that's how you got the respect. And when you get old, your brain doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So, all right. So, what do I want to talk about this morning? Well, it seems to be the topic that nobody wants to really, I think, analyze enough. Or the people who do analyze enough, they can't really say it, because if they say it, then immediately they got hit with "you're a racist" or whatever. So, good morning, Sister Misty. So I've been pulled into a couple discussions, and some very disturbing, very, very disturbing. But they usually are. Like, that's just the culture we're in right now. And one of the thoughts that came to my mind in the discussion I was having was about, so everyone's still this whole racism thing. My input's a little weird because I'm not of the lighter skin African background. And I remember when the lighter skinned African background people, they got the job, they got the girl, they got the better grade, they got all those things. And so when you talk about, how getting people focused on the tone of somebody's color is significant, it's not black and white. And honestly, nothing ever is. Nothing in life is black and white. There's spectrums. And so I kind of get a little bit of a tickle and a little bit of a giggle when I see certain people yelling the racism thing. And I think about back when I was dirt, so now I'm supposed to be with you, being lighter skinned and having more lighter skin privilege than I ever had. And now I'm supposed to be with you, and we're going to go after these other people who are a little lighter so you can have more power. Nah, I'm not. I have no interest in that game. It's a spectrum game, and race, race, which doesn't exist. It's just skin tone. It has nothing to do with anything other than the sun. So, I'm getting tired of this this ideology, idea, we'll go with idea, that liberals are defenders of minorities. They're not. They completely are not. And it doesn't mean the GOP is any better, but what it means is that when you feel someone is your defender, you feel better when you put them in office, right? You can kind of step back because you say, well, the problems in our country, it's racism, right? You get everybody focused on race. And so a fix to that problem would be to put anybody in office that's not that, or that is the race that's being discriminated against. And that is getting us in a lot of trouble. That's getting us in a lot of trouble because people tend to forget how slavery really got started in America. Now, mind you, of course, it was the Arab slave trade, which had nothing to do with America. America just tapped into it because of the Irish, but we talked about that. So there was these statistics they used to put out about the life expectancy of I think it was either first or second lieutenant, or it was just officer, I forgot, in the Vietnam War, and the life expectancy of the officer in the Vietnam War, from getting off the helicopter into a hot war zone, it was like a couple seconds, because it was just such a hot area. And the life expectancy of a European person in Africa amongst warring tribes, that was not a long life expectancy, right? Like they couldn't go in and grab their own slaves. And so they hired tribes to do it, right? They tapped into the Arab slave trade that was already there, and they're already known for it. The great thing, though, was they showed up with these things called guns, right? Which was a great fix, because if you give my tribe guns, it means that nobody's walking us into slavery. But, the trade-off is I got to walk y'all into slavery, and that's how that kind of all worked. And I don't think those tribes went anywhere. I think they are in office. I think some really horrible things, which I won't really ever say, but I'll allude to them. And that is, if you just say our problems are racism and they're not greed, then it means that when we promote certain people to certain places in office, it means we can sit back and do nothing and we're happy. Now, I was listening to a great lecture this morning by Michelle Alexander, and what she was talking about was, I can't, I always get to that part where I don't want to say the name because I say the name, and of course, identity politics and personality politics kick up, and people start getting upset because I mention the name. I don't want to do it. So I have to figure out how to have these conversations where people listen and they don't get angry because I'm talking something against somebody who they think is a god. But they were trying to walk her into saying that, and Michelle Alexander, by the way, she's the author of The New Jim Crow. If you haven't read it, I really highly encourage you to not talk about modern slavery. I highly encourage you to not talk about racism or race until you actually read the book and look at the research. So they were trying to walk her into saying that this last administration did great things for ending modern slavery. And, she pointed out a few things. And, Michelle, it's funny, if you watch a lot of stuff, she says she won't, she knows how not to make an enemy. She's freaking amazing. If you ever want to spend some time and learn some real deep stuff, go look up Michelle Alexander, get her book. Her audiobook's on YouTube. I don't know that it's supposed to be, which is why I don't want to promote it. I'm saying buy the book. She did the research, and she is a great proponent of ending mass incarceration. So they tried to walk her into how it's a good thing. And he said, yeah, well, this administration is going to do some really great things before they walk out of office because some really bad, folks are coming in after them. And what she talked about clemency. So, Clinton came out and admitted a while back that he effectively caused this modern slavery type system. He poured kerosene on it, right? The constructs are in there and have been there since the 13th Amendment, but he poured gasoline on it. And he did it to win an election, and he followed through afterwards. I think he went a bit far outside of election promises, because he didn't just ramp up on the police and prisons, but then he also shut off the welfare. So, of course, it instantly created a modern slave, right? A subclass. And I was in a discussion with someone and they were talking about how it's not class, it's race. You know, it's not class, it's race. And I'm sitting here saying, nah, that's not true, sister. That's not true, because if you get caught, doing something, you become a felon. It means that after, when you get out, you're not voting. You can't get a job. You can't get housing. What are you actually going to do? You have no rights. You have very few rights. You don't have freedom. You're going to live in a life of crime, which means that you just created this perpetual system of people who can't lift themselves up, and they can't even speak for themselves because they can't even vote. So they were trying to walk Michelle into saying that the last administration was good, and I was in a conversation with a brother last night. He was trying to do the same thing, and I can't get on that boat, man. That's a boat that some of y'all are on. I will not get on that boat. I will not get on the boat because slavery didn't end in the last administration. And while there were a few things where maybe you gave the slaves a little bit of lemonade and you gave them an extra holiday day on Christmas, you could have walked out and you could have said clemency, right? If Clinton said that we did wrong, we did all of these kids wrong and shoveling all into prisons, we were wrong, we the government were wrong, I was wrong. If you admit that you're wrong and you walked all these kids into slavery, isn't the right thing to end it? Not kind of tinker with it and play with it and give them lollipops on Sunday, but say, no, you should not be in prison. We need to end this. And no, of course, Clinton didn't fix it, didn't do it. Bush didn't do it. And Obama didn't do it. And I'm pretty sure Trump's not going to do it. I hope Trump would do it, but you know me, I'm not a believer in politicians. I don't get trapped up in that. And so greed is the basis of why it won't go away. And until liberals, you can learn something from some of the constitutionalists, right? Like civil rights and freedom are the same thing. I'm not saying go along with everything they're saying. I'm just saying pay a little bit of attention, because on that side, they're fighting for the Constitution and freedom of all men and women. And that's like the constructs of what can bring about the end of modern slavery. But they understand that if people talk across lines, I think that you'll get that. And so what they do is they hand down these race narratives, this idea that a person is predisposed to not liking you because of their skin color. The very concept, like that very thought, is a racist thought. Like you have to think through this stuff. Why would they get everybody so focused on race? Because if you do, you'll constantly fight, and you'll fight about something that can't be legislated away, which is a phenomenal business idea if you really, really think about it. If you get everybody focused on race, then you can't legislate away race. It's just this emotional thing. It's like when someone gets shot by the police, the first thing they do, if he's minority or she, and the police is not, sometimes he isn't, but they still do it anyway. The first thing they do is they start marching, they start yelling and screaming race. Why? Like, ask yourself why? Why? I mean, they did it with Trayvon Martin, and the guy was Hispanic. Why? Why would you do that? Because race is an emotional thing that you cannot solve. You can't solve racism with legislation. And if you can get everybody hooping, hollering, and yelling, then we don't have to change the laws. And if we don't have to change the laws, the greed doesn't stop. And we can continue to make money on this thing, And there's so many levels of greed, which is why it kind of hurts me a little bit, because people can't seem to get it. They say, well, if you don't talk about race, it's not going to just go away. No, it's not going to go away. And I'm not saying don't talk about race. I'm saying you got to cool your jets on the racism and focus on the greed. Because if the greed is what we focus on, you can find the laws for the people making money from this thing. And that's what they don't want you to find. You can turn off the laws where they make money. It's like, uh-oh, I just realized I wasn't on Wi-Fi. Uh-oh, let's do that. There we go. That might help my signal. Thought, but one of the things that has been bothering me, if y'all been watching my videos about a month or so ago, I try not to talk about it because it's in this place it's really emotional, right? Like man, there was these guys, and they lured 4 kids over to a property to buy drugs, to buy marijuana, buy cannabis, and they killed the kids and they buried them. And it hits me and it hurts me. It's actually, I mean, I'm not related to them. I don't know them. But there's something about, like, I've never lived in areas where this type of stuff happens, right? And to kind of really think about, less than half a mile or whatever from where you are, that 4 kids were killed and buried. It does something to you, man. I can't explain it, but it's profitable to make drugs illegal, right? It's profitable, and I don't like to call them drugs because they're not drugs. They're just plants, right? They're plants. They're medicinal plants that our ancestors all used. But it's very profitable to make them illegal in a lot of ways. And the two psychologically disturbed kids who killed those other kids, it was profitable. Why? Because they used it to kill them. That's how they got them there. When I was growing up, it was a big thing for crack cocaine was a big thing. And what the police got caught doing in the Washington D.C. area was sprinkling crack. Well, all right, I want to say it that way. That's kind of right. I always go back to Dave Chappelle. He's just a funny cat, but he speaks a lot of truth. But he talks about how you get arrested by the police and you give them lip or attitude or whatever, and they take out their little bag of crack and they sprinkle crack on you and they say, it's drug related. He's dead. We shot him, but it was drug related. Or we can take you in because you got crack residue on you. Why would they do that? Like, why would police do that? There was a link going around Facebook yesterday. It was this brother that he caught the police on tape planting stuff on him. Michelle Alexander was talking about it. One of the kids who she was representing in California against the police department. One of the things he said is that, they were trying to put together a class action lawsuit in this area, and they couldn't find any kids that didn't have felony records. They all had drug charges. They all had, and they couldn't. And so her point was, we can't start a class action lawsuit with somebody who's got a felony. And she kind of, the guy got upset and walked out or stormed out of her office when they were talking about it, because apparently this was a very well-spoken kid, good guy. And, it was about stop and frisk, right? Like he documented everything. Like she said, it was methodical, where he had record after record, the day, the time, the police officer's name, why they stopped him, what he said, how long he was on the ground, like all of that. But he didn't say that he was a felon. And after they've been meeting for a little while, he said, well, I'm a felon. And she said, well, I can't represent you. Like, you can't lead a class action lawsuit and you're a felon. And, she said months later, I had to think about that. And that was wrong. Like, why would I do that? Like, it was obvious that something happened in this area where they were giving all of these kids drug charges, which would give the police station in that area the ability to go in and harass, stop and frisk everybody they saw, because they already had a record. And of course that was their response, which is, well, these kids have records, we got to keep an eye on them, they're a danger to the community, for a plant. Why would they do that? Why, you could, it's easy to look at it and say, well, because the cops are racist and the police department, they're racist. And I'm not on that boat because I like to look into things deeper. I want to know the actual problem so we can actually solve these problems. And like I said before, these police aren't racist, and the police department is not racist. It is financially and career-wise beneficial for them to have high arrest records. Why? It's beneficial because it helps their career, which directly helps them to pay a mortgage. So our problems aren't race. And when you yell and scream and argue and fuss and fight about racism, the plantation owners love that. The slave traders love that. And why, by plantation owners and slave traders, who am I talking about? I'm talking about the politicians, right? And some of y'all might be envisioning, European politicians. I'm not. I'm not. I'm envisioning, the tribes that sold people into slavery, right? Because the vast majority, go on record with this one, because slavery still exists, the vast majority of politicians are 100% behind the slave trade of all races, right? They're black, they're white, they're Hispanic. They're not doing anything to stop it. Michelle made a great point, which is when Obama left, he could have shut it down because you already had a president admit that this was wrong and they should not have done this to these children. And when he left office, he could have pardoned whatever he wanted. It could have been a limited pardon. And that's the great thing. The only good thing about modern slavery is it doesn't take a war to end. It just takes one president that gives a damn. Think about that. Think about that. Like, I get that you want to get behind people because of their skin color, but never judge a man for his skin color. Always judge a man for what he does. Judge a man for his heart. And slavery still exists. And it's not because it's a race thing. It's not because you have all these white people who hate black people. It's because you have a lot of people who make a lot of money on human trafficking and human capital. And that's the real deal. That's the real story. And so liberals, and I'm kind of talking to you guys because, and I guess it's a lot of what brought this on is Bernie and Bernie running. So everybody wants to talk about how the Democrats are slightly better than the Republicans. Brother, they are not. They are not. And I think, Brother Kevin, I appreciate you posted some of the details on that, but they were instrumental. They were the ones. It was Clinton and the Black Caucus and people who you thought were there to guard and protect these kids in these inner cities. The ones that you thought were going to look out for them are the ones who actually turned them all back into slavery. So that's what I'm on this morning, which I want y'all to really think about is you got, there are two ways to do. There's two ways to end this modern slavery, and my perspective on it is I really don't care to talk about how many of any type of people are in modern slavery. What I give a damn about is there are white kids and there are black kids in prison cells on concrete that should be out here in the grass running, right? They should be in school. They should be in college. They should be out doing things, and they're not because it makes a lot of money having them in cages. And maybe they didn't have a mom. Maybe they didn't have a dad. Maybe their mom or their dad went and they were put in prison. So this is not a black-white thing. This is not a race issue. This is all a greed issue. And the reason they don't want you focused on greed is because you can solve greed. You can find the law. You can turn off the slavery type laws that allow them to take these kids in. And that's why I'm not yelling and screaming whatever, at the police. The laws are the problem. They put the laws in place, and then there are people who, for whatever reason, thrive on those laws. And if you could go, I give you this. Let's just say that there are, let's say there are 20,000 police in the United States right now that are planting drugs on kids. I said that wrong. Let's say there are 20,000 police right now in the United States that are putting plants in kids' pockets, dried plants. You can go after all 20,000 if you want, and I think you might get about 10 because catching that type of thing is not easy. And even when you catch it, it's hard to convict. And even when you convict, it's hard to get, so, or in one fell swoop, you can end it by having a president deschedulizing this nonsense, by having a president pardon these people, or by people getting together and saying that's it. And Brother Bill just said it, which is if everybody in America, not even everybody, but a good majority got together and said, we're done, it would happen. But that can't happen because your mind is locked into fighting with the people you're supposed to be allying with, which is why, and a lot of it, once again, it comes down from that Democrat liberal side to talk about race, to make really discriminatory comments. So there's certain words I don't use, and I'm going to go ahead and say those words because I think my people, and by people I mean the people that I'm working with, I think y'all get me in that I want to work with you. And if I want to work with you on helping save these kids of all races, it means that I can't say things that puts you in a headlock, right? Like I can't say, come work with me. Like there's a thing that I keep saying, I keep hearing, I keep saying, well, if you want to work with the people, you got to meet them where they are. And I think it's this idea that you as a white person, you have to accept, white privilege, white guilt, white supremacy, and all these things that government did, right? That you have to accept these things and give more control in a movement over to other groups of people because you've got to accept this shame or something. I don't get to dictate a brother coming in the fight. I don't get to dictate to him what he has to accept, or a sister coming in the fight. If they're coming in the fight, I don't give a damn what scholars on one side say. If this brother comes to me and says, look, let's get this done, I'm going to say, all right. And I say something, I use the word, white privilege or whatever. And he said, oh, brother, that offends me. Why would you say that to me? I grew up poor. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. I live out there and, my dad ran away. Don't say that to me because while that might apply to some people, it does not apply to me as a white guy. And I'm going to stop and I'm going to say, this is what we do in work. So this is not hard stuff, guys. This is really not difficult to grasp. I'm going to say, all right, well, listen, if my goal is to end modern slavery and this cat's telling me that he's offended when I use racial slurs with, what the race he associates himself with, then I'm a fool if I keep using those words. It means that my ego is more important than getting the job done, right? If these people come, and this is my problem, because I know I keep getting tagged in this stuff, and which is fine. Y'all can tag me. I'm okay with that. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it. If there are a lot of trolls and just ignorance that's handed down from on high, I tend to not jump into it because I don't like the drama. I like to talk to educated people who are actually trying to solve a problem, not the people who have an agenda. So if my agenda is I want y'all to come on over to my side, meet me where I am, and then bully you around, it's not going to work. You're not going to get any unity that way. And that's why I tend to stand in this area wearing, hey, listen, brother, let's work out. Let's figure this thing out. We know there's a problem. We got to bring it down. And then maybe these are the things that are most important to me. You tell me what's most important to you, but I'm not going to throw racial slurs at you and expect you to work with me on the things that I'm trying to do too. And that's just basic. It's not even corporate America, man. It's not even job. It's like basic kindergarten logic. And so on this thing of meet the people where they are, because I want to address that. Meet the people where they are, and I assume a cup of coffee. I assume that means that certain people aren't ready to let go of some of the anger and some of the hate, and I get that. I get that, and I don't judge those people. Like, you are where you are, and I can't force you to be where I am, and I won't force them to be where I am. But when a politician, when those words are handed down on high, right, from the leaders, you don't have to work with white people because they gotta meet you where you are. Why would they say that? Would they perhaps say that because they know you can't meet them where you are? Because they know that this country is hurting and this country's in survival mode. And they know there are a lot of starving white kids out there too. They know that they're not going to meet you where you are because they can't meet you where you are. Instead, for me, I just say, why don't you just tell them the truth? Why don't you just tell them the truth that you are a black politician who makes a lot of money from modern slavery, that you've had time and time again to do something. You were in front of a mic. You had the ability to say something. You could have brought about the end of mass incarceration. But instead of doing that, you decided to give the slaves lollipops on Fridays. And there's a difference between ending modern slavery and just making a nicer form of slavery. Making a nicer form of slavery, it allows you to stay a politician. It gives you a platform. It lets you talk about something. If your district is falling apart, it means that you can constantly rant on and be reelected each year talking to solve something you don't ever have to solve. It also means that you can write a book, and the book writing doesn't mostly come from the politician. This comes from a lot of your leaders. It means you can write a book and you can make a lot of money on slavery. Again, if you show up to the plantation with your cart and you're loading cotton on, you're just as responsible for slavery. You don't have to be on a ship sailing to go pick up some African or Irish slaves. If you make money from the company that sails the sails to those ships, you're a part of it. And this is why I'm saying that we got to start calling a spade, man. I'm kind of fed up with all of this, and I'm fed up with my place in this, man. It's all about the kids, and it's about ending modern slavery. If you don't have a chance at life, if you don't have a chance at freedom, we have nothing else to talk about. I don't care, again, lollipops on Fridays and a nicer slavery ain't gonna get us anywhere. Ending all of this is what gets us. And we have really highly intelligent, highly kids who are white and black and Hispanic sitting in prisons rotting because your politicians make a lot of money on it, because you cheer for them because they look like you, but they're getting guns, and so they're turning everybody else's kids into slaves. So that's what I'm dropping this morning. I'm going to try to take a look at some of the comments because I don't always do that, but I want to try to keep it short and just see what y'all are talking about. Yeah, and self-interest, Kevin, you got it right. We're victims of self-interest. We all make money from this. Like, one of the great examples is Khalif Browder. Rest in peace, love the brother. He was a great example of all of this, because it's important to really process this. And man, if you have white guilt, like I really honestly, I don't know what to say to you. I see the stuff that y'all post, and the only thing I can tell you is you're not helping. You're not helping. You can't cheer politicians because of their skin color. You can't cheer leaders or groups because most of them have a certain skin color. A lot of people make a lot of money from this. And so here's the example was Khalif Browder. So Khalif was that young brother that they grabbed off the street in New York. And I think he was 16, and somebody said he stole a book bag. So the officer that arrested him was white and took him into I guess it's holding or whatever. And but everybody from there, or the majority, or it was a lot of them. You have to watch the documentary. They were black, right? So a lot of the judges were black, and they draw decent salaries, $200,000 a year. The COs, half of the COs were black. They were making 100. I think the average CO in New York at that time was making $120,000 a year. The head of the COs union was black. The mayor in New York, I think at that time, was black. The top cop in the nation, Eric Holder, was black, and the president at the time was black. And so if we can't agree that we don't have a race issue, we have a greed issue. And we have people who are of those races selling all these kids into slavery, then we're not going to get to the heart of the problem. Follow the money. If the money ends at a law that's making money on trafficking children, it's got to get deleted. And that's why anytime you say something, people yell racism at you, because they've been told to say that. And because they say that, it means that nothing will change. And the corporations that they work with will continue to funnel them money, which will continue to keep their careers. So I'm calling foul. And I'm a kind of right there, but I'm calling foul. I'm calling foul. I'm calling. I won't say it. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it, but I'm gonna have to say it. I'm gonna have to say it because nobody else is saying it. I'm gonna say it. Y'all pulled the race card. I'm gonna have to pull the sellout card. You're a sellout. You're a jigaboo. You're a porch monkey. You're all of those things because you make money and you have a career on putting people in prison. Folks, if you want to do something to help these kids, if you want to do something to end modern slavery and get these kids out of cages and back in the fields running and playing and let them go back to being kids again, if you want to stop making it possible for an officer to have a career, and there are very few bad officers out there, but if you want to stop making it possible for them to bolster careers off of taking these kids into prison, you've got to delete the laws. And you have to get an army of people to do that. And you can't have an army of people to do that unless you stop offending them. Stop offending them. Process that. Ask yourself, why do you give a damn? Do you give a damn because you have a nice job? Do you give a damn because you want to write a book? Do you give a damn because you've built up a culture at work targeting who the racists are and going to HR and, I try to stay positive. And, Julie, it comes down to identity politics, which is where we live. Because if I can somehow convince you that because of my skin color, my race, my sexual preference, that I'm going to look out for people who are of that sexual preference or who are of that religion or who are of that race, if I can convince you of that, man, I can do anything I want. I can make a whole lot of money doing anything I want to y'all. Never go along with someone because of that identity. Never. Look at what they do. Watch what they do. And that's kind of it. I don't want to belabor the point, but that was what this was about. It was about we have to stop offending each other. We have to end this racism, because when you follow the money and you want to keep talking about race and you want to keep getting people to kind of accept and talk about things and be less than you because you want to dominate a conversation, then you're promoting slavery. Like, that's really what it comes down to. because those are the things the promoters of it are handing down. They're telling you to go after the police. They're telling you to blame the police. They're telling you to blame the. Do you know how many sheriff's office there are in this country? Are you really going to go after all of them? Go for the single point of failure. The single point of failure are your politicians and the laws they write. If you understand that slavery was always about greed, it was never about race, you know where to attack. You know where to go. I was in a conversation this morning. I know I'm still going. Leave me alone. Sometimes I get going. It's the coffee. I blame the coffee. And he's a good brother too. Love this guy. Oh, this is my brother. And so, but we disagree. We don't, and we disagree on some points. And what he said, well, it's ignorance and hate. That's the source of racism, ignorance and hate. And I completely disagree. I don't think that sailors and slavers got on boats to go to Africa and Ireland to get slaves and indentured servants that died on the boat, which were effectively lifelong slaves anyway, because if you died on the boat or you died before you were released, that's still a slave. But I don't think that they got on the boat and they went to go fill their bank accounts full of hate and ignorance. I don't think hate and ignorance are worth getting on a boat. I don't know anybody I've ever met in my life that would go sail across an ocean because they wanted to get hate and ignorance credits. No. They did it to get money. Stay focused on the fact that every evil in this world is done to pay a mortgage. It's all about money. If you take the money out of what makes slavery so profitable, it goes away. If you take the money out of what makes human trafficking and foster care and children to go away, it goes away. If you take the money out of the conversation, all of these things that you want away, you don't like, they go away. And that's why, like I said, our solution is not a political one, because the politicians don't give a damn about you. I'm trying to tell you, there are very few that kind of meet my approval. Nah, approval is too strong a word. It's too strong. I won't say I won't say approval. There's some politicians that meet. That's not right. I can't go there either. There's some politicians who say the right stuff. That's what it is. There's some politicians who say the right things, but their affiliation is with groups that make money from all of this. If you're with that group and they make that money from that, and you are elected as a president, you're not going to go against that group. They're going to go with the group. So if you're anything like me, and I'm going to end on this. Honestly, I'm going to end on this one. If you're anything like me, anything, because the discussion I had the brother, he listed off 32 reasons. I couldn't even read all of them. Why the Democrats were slightly better than the Republicans. I couldn't read all. If you're anything like me and you accept that we can't talk about what adults want, we can't talk about they want lollipops when they go to the bank, they want all these extra legislation. We can't talk about what adults want until the children have what they need, right? Until children don't have bombs raining on their heads, and until children don't have a right to have a decent life and some equality, until kids aren't walked into these slavery-like systems because they didn't maybe have a mom and dad who got it and who understood that these systems are after them. Until we have that, I have zero interest. Do you know how much of gotta check my words. Do you know how much of a special person you look like talking about what adults can get from their government? What else adults can have to make their lives a little better, a little nicer, a little friendlier. If they actually pass a law. Do you know how much of it? If the main purpose of an adult or parents in our society are to look out for children but most of the adults only talk about themselves, what they can get. So until there is no slavery, until children have a right to live without bombs dropping on their heads, you look like an ass talking about what you can get and what you want and what rights you have. And I have a lot of friends of all different types, and it's important, the issues that they have. But if we can't get our humanity right, if we can't agree that kids don't have a race, they're kids, they're just kids. They should be playing, and they should be allowed to be kids. Then we've lost our soul, and we shouldn't exist anyway. If it's that important to you, that you get your tiddlywinks, your shiny stuff from your Democrats or your Republicans, and we can't agree that these kids that you're supposed to be protecting, that we're all supposed to be protecting, if we can't agree that they have a right to life and they have a right to not live in a cage, we really don't deserve to exist. We don't. So that's my message for this morning. Don't let anybody walk you into a racist conversation. Don't accept it. Don't buy it. Don't bite it. Shut it down. The basis of all profit in this world has always been human capital. It's been the most profitable system ever going. The Democrats love it. The Republicans love it. Y'all want to say the majority in prisons are black? They all love it. They all thrive on it. They all write books. They all make money. And they have big careers on shoveling these children into prison. And they're sitting right next to white kids. Get a heart. Please, get a heart.